On today's show, the Oklahoma City Thunder lose for the second straight game at home. This time it's to the Toronto Raptors. Scottie Barnes comes up big in the win for Toronto. We'll talk about that. Plus, New Orleans getting a really nice win over the Spurs and everything else that happened on Sunday's day in the NBA.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from Locked On Cavs. You might know my co-host Swipa from Locked On Nuggets, and we both want to say thank you to you for making this edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first watch or listen of the day. It's because of people like you that the Locked On Podcast Network is now the #1 sports podcast network in all of America. You can find this show and any other Locked On podcast anywhere you get them. That means Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube as well. If you're watching right now, please do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell, and make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're consuming.
Wait, we're number what on podcasts?
#1, Swipa, #1 sports podcast network in the country. Can you believe that?
#1, yeah. Locked On Network, #1. Look at us. Look at us.
I'm glad that you are. I'm glad that I have a question about how you're feeling in just a second. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. This is the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5, get $200 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. We've got a lot of NBA games to get into, but I have to ask, are you okay? Your Denver Broncos losing the AFC Championship game Sunday afternoon. We're obviously taping this Sunday night. I saw some fireworks in your background. I assume you're okay to do the show. I just want to check before we dive in.
Well, I do think that most fans that are watching this can empathize with me. Losing your starting quarterback going into an AFC championship is just gut-wrenching, and then losing your number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver, and still not having your number 1 running back. And the fact that the Patriots played as bad as they did, and the Denver Broncos held them, they really held them to 3 points, but then they gave up, obviously, the touchdown from, Jarrett Stidham. I truly, in my heart of hearts, think that the Broncos should be playing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, and I think most of the people watching this agree. So I take solace in the fact that most people who know ball know the Broncos really would have won that game today.
I like to think of myself as a ball knower, and I definitely agree with you. But we have to get onto the NBA, where the Oklahoma City Thunder dropped their second straight home game. First time that's happened since 2023, as the Toronto Raptors get a 103-101 win over Oklahoma City. Before we dive into this, let's hear from Sean Woodley with Locked On Raptors for more.
Hey, it's Sean here. You may be wondering where I am. I am currently in the woods, snowed in at my parents' house, unable to record a proper video because my child is asleep inside, and I need to hoot and holler a little bit, so I'm outside where it's very snowy and dark. The Toronto Raptors beat the OKC Thunder, hence the hooting and the hollering, 103-101 Sunday night to close out a 4-1 Western Conference road trip. They go back home 29-19, having won 4 in a row. And they are the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They are very good. They're a top 5 defense. Their offense is coming along. They're starting to get healthy. RJ Barrett got back on this road trip. Jacoby Walter got back on this road trip. Immanuel Quickley took a couple games off last week and came back a man changed. He was unbelievable on this trip. And in this game, 2 massive late game threes, 23 points for him to lead the way for the Raptors, 6 of 10 from downtown. He's completely turned his season around on this road trip. Scottie Barnes with a late game block on Chet Holmgren on a jump shot, no less. Chet Holmgren, very tall. Scottie Barnes does not care. And even in this game where he wasn't terribly effective on offense, 10 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, steal, 3 blocks, and some massive impact plays. Scottie Barnes rules. And the Toronto Raptors maybe kind of rule too. Why not the Raptors? The Eastern Conference is no good. The Raptors are seemingly getting better by the day. Colin Murray-Boyle should come back soon. We'll see about Jakob Poeltl. That's a concern. We have no idea when he's going to play again, but this Raptors team is rolling. They come back home on Wednesday to play the Knicks, who are not playing terribly well right now, and this thing could just keep on going forward as the Raptors look to climb the Eastern Conference. 2 seed anybody? 1 seed? Maybe that's a little far off, but why not? They just beat the Thunder, baby.
1 seed is a little far off, and we will get to the Pistons beating the Kings on Sunday as well. But I think the 2 seeds in play for a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. The Raptors are certainly one of them. You brought up the block that Scottie Barnes had over Chet Holmgren. Sean brought up that block. That was, to me, the play of this game. This was certainly a defensive-minded battle. Neither of these two teams played particularly well offensively, but overall, like, I thought that the Raptors just did a great job down the stretch of doing the little things to find a way to win.
Yeah, the Raptors have just been one of the more surprising, in a good way, teams all season, and today was just another example of that. I just love how Darko has them playing, and they just trust each other. And by the way, you know, they're doing this. They're still not fully healthy, and they were sitting several people today, including Jameson Bagel and Mogbo. So the fact that Sandro, you know, didn't have a great shooting game, he's actually been a really good offensive player for them. RJ Barrett's been in and out of the lineup. But Scottie Barnes, you know, especially to a lot of my Raptors friends that I know, you know, he almost had a triple-double tonight, and the defense that he played was spectacular, namely with the block. But I think the biggest credit I want to give to in this game is Immanuel Quickley. He's playing versus a very difficult defense. Like the OKC Thunder, they are the best defense and best guard defense in the NBA. And so when you play them, it takes a lot for you to have to really overcome a lot of disadvantages. But he played a really good game, shot 50% from the field. He made 6 threes in this game, had 11 rebounds, and maybe the most important plays of the game too, Danny. When they get the ball, so they're up and they're trying to get a stop. And after they get a bucket stop, they go to the free throw line and they get back-to-back missed free throws in this game. And I want to say those missed free throws, they might have been, I mean, got to correct me from, might have been Jamal Shed. I can't remember who.
They were Jamal Shed, yes. He missed both free throws I think it was with just over 24 seconds left. It was right in
maybe
that
even
area.
That. And
might
it was a
left.
tip out to Immanuel Quickley, and then
you know,
Quickley
who
went
tipped
to
it
the
out
line.
to Quickley was Scottie Barnes. Like that was a big play for him. And it wasn't just the free throws that Quickley hit too.
Yeah.
He hit 2 threes. They were down 2, hits a 3, puts them up 1. They get a stop. He hits another 3, puts them up 4. Like I believe, because unless I'm missing a bucket in there, I believe he had the last 8 points for the Raptors in this game in clutch time. Like for everything good Scottie Barnes did in that defensive play on Holmgren was awesome. Immanuel Quickley was the guy that took them home offensively in this game. And the question I have about the Raptors is I look at the roster and I see a lot of really talented players, but I don't see like a number one option offensively because I don't think Brandon Ingram is that. And I don't think Scottie Barnes is that. So I do think that when they get into these games against really good teams, it's kind of going to be a by committee thing as far as who is kind of got it going on in the fourth quarter. Today it was Immanuel Quickley. Tomorrow it might be somebody else. That's kind of one of my questions about them, but Immanuel Quickley really came through in this one on Sunday.
Yeah, and I know Raptors fans, they really been up and down on Immanuel Quickley, and a lot of this is, you know, as you know, Danny, when you're a shot maker and you're a guard, so much of your value this year is contingent on whether or not you can hit shots and you're providing real offensive value because he's obviously not a good defender. But hey, you know, on the year, the Raptors are plus 2.8 points per possession better when he plays. They're actually like playing better with him on the floor. Like their offense is 4 points better with him on the floor this year, basically. Like he does a lot of really valuable things for them. And I think even when you have him next to Scottie Barnes, and then you put him next to Mamu, especially Mamu, Scottie, and Quickley this year, a plus 12.6 net rating with a 122 offensive rating in 315 minutes played. So I feel like he is, for many people, definitely a conundrum because they don't like the shot quality that he has. But I can tell you that when you have a guard on the floor who can shoot and who can dribble, that changes everything for how teams have to deal with you. So today, I think, truly showed why they signed him to that deal because he ended up being the difference between them losing this game and winning it.
And as for the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he had 24 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. Chet Holmgren had 11 points on 5 of 10 shooting, didn't make any threes. He had 10 rebounds. And overall, I think the biggest reason why Oklahoma City lost this game is because they shot the ball really poorly from beyond the arc. There were a lot of looks that they were getting from deep that I really did like a lot of wide open looks. But when you go 11 of 43 from deep and you play a good team, far more often than not, you're not going to be able to find a way to get a win.
Yeah, I agree, man. The Thunder now with 10 losses on the year. Yeah, man. The Western Conference is about to get, Lord willing, healthy here in the next couple of weeks. I'm actually curious to see how that chase for the 1 seed looks down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, I am too. And the Thunder have been a team that has been good without Jalen Williams. We don't know when Jalen Williams is going to be back with the hamstring injury that's cost him the last couple of games. But, this is a Thunder team that is also missing a lot of guys. They have had almost as many games missed due to injury or illness. And part of that is because of Nikola Topic. Part of that's because of Swarber. Like, those guys have not played at all this year, but they've had a lot of guys that have missed a lot of time because of injuries so far this season. Now let's flip over to the other conference, where the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons, got a 139-116 win over the Sacramento Kings on Sunday afternoon. Cade Cunningham was awesome. He had 29 points, 11 assists on 13 of 22 shooting. The Kings continue to be bad. They fall to 3-19 on the road so far this season.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Shout out to Cade Cunningham. Shout out to the rest of that roster, man. That was a good win. Just continue to stack those wins and put themselves in very advantageous situation come playoff time, getting the overall number 1 seed. That's going to bode really well for them, I think.
Yeah, they have a 5.5 game lead in the Eastern Conference over the Boston Celtics. I think it's a little early to say that it's wrapped up for them, but sure. I also am at the point where it's hard for me to see one of those teams catching, because I do think there's a better chance the Celtics maybe come back down to earth a little bit than they race up and catch the Pistons with how big that gap is. So those were the 2 games involving the top teams in each conference, but there were some good games involving some lesser teams or some teams fighting for other playoff positioning. We'll talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. Yeah, them getting a win over the San Antonio Spurs, plus everything else from Sunday in the NBA next, right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel, because you've got one final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure that you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, which is the Seattle Seahawks, or riding with the underdog New England Patriots, or maybe you just want to build one final same game parlay for this football season, this is the game that everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels like it's bigger than the last one. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. So if you're a new customer with FanDuel, all you have to do, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. It's the last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Thank you for making today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen. Thank you to those of you that make Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen every single day. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And you could find the New Orleans Pelicans getting a 104-95 win over the San Antonio Spurs on Sunday afternoon. Before we dive deeper into this, let's hear from Jake Madison with Locked On Pels for more.
Pelicans beat the Spurs 104-95 in probably their best game of the season. I'm Jake Madison, host of Locked On Pelicans. Forget that the Pelicans blew a 20-point lead. You got to get up 20 points in the first place to be able to blow that. And you had a very good game from Zion Williamson in this one. He was active defensively. He was aggressive on offense, going right at Victor Wembanyama. You also had a great game from Trey Murphy, hitting clutch shots down the stretch. Herb Jones is back for the team. That adds a lot of defense, and you just saw them look like a different Pelican squad than the team that has been probably the worst team in the NBA this season. They're also let off the bench by Yves Missi. The box score doesn't really stay it, but he was incredible on the defensive side of the ball down the stretch, just getting stops, getting blocks, forcing misses. He was cutting on offense, moving, opening up a lane for Zion Williamson, for Trey Murphy, and others. Just a good all-around night for the Pelicans. Nice to get in what's been a bit of a lost season.
Certainly a lost season. It is a nice win for them. I do think, like, if you want to look at this is probably a worse loss for the Spurs than it is a nice win for the Pelicans. Like, this is a game that if you're looking at the Western Conference standings, which I know we're all doing every single day, like, they are in a battle for seeding. And when you see a team like New Orleans or Washington or Brooklyn on the schedule, those are games that you have to get. And for the Spurs to drop this one, I think it's at least mildly concerning. The one thing that I look at from the box score, like Wemby had 16 points, 16 boards, took 10 threes in this game. That for me is a little bit too high of a number for him to be at his best.
Well, it was kind of just the coverages that he was seeing today. But really, shout out to Zion, Sadiq, Derek. They were getting in his grill today. Eben Meesey also. By the way, Eben Meesey had an incredible defensive play at the end of this game. They tried to get a lob, I think it was De'Aaron Fox to Victor Wembanyama. He knocked the ball away out of the air. They get a run out. Zion Williamson, basically, I would say a step and a half in front of the free throw line, jumps off his right foot, double clutches the ball in the air, and then dunks it with his left hand. And I think that these are the kind of games that give you a reminder that the Pelicans actually have a good bit of talent on that roster. Trey Murphy had some really good moments trying to stretch of this game. Obviously, he's a really good shooter. Sadiq Bey continues to get his value back up in the league, had a good shooting game. And then I think Eben Meesey, who for a lot of people is extremely raw, but brother, he had a drive with a minute 45 left on Victor Wembanyama where he did a hard 2 dribbles, right hand, talking about got around the corner and flushed it on Wemby to show why he is a 1% athlete in the NBA. So it was a truly, truly great game. But again, man, with the Spurs, if you can be a little aggressive with them, especially with Wemby, I think that's one of the best things that you can do to get them disruptive. And I think they did a great job of that today.
I do think that has to be the game plan if you are taking on the Spurs, and that's why I'm so fascinated to see. And this is a little bit ways down the road, but I'm so fascinated to see what he and what that team is going to look like when they get into a playoff setting later on this year. Now, we talked about the Eastern Conference standings a little bit in the first segment. Oklahoma City still in first place in the West. They have a 5.5 game lead now over the Spurs after San Antonio lost this one. Denver is in a virtual tie with the Spurs. They're both 31 and 15. So they're both tied for second technically right now. I'm not sure if those two teams have played or what the tiebreaker situation is at the moment, but like they are in a position where to me, they very much look like a team that's going to be on the right side of the plane. Like they will be in the top 6. But getting one of those top 2 seeds, I think, is going to be one of the most important races to watch the rest of this season. And the Spurs are right in the thick of it. And I think that's why a loss like this is so painful.
Yeah, Jokic should be back maybe on Tuesday. So, we have a lot of stuff to look forward to as well, because I think that race for the number 2 seed between the Spurs and Denver, that is going to be an absolute war down the rest of the year.
And speaking of a team that is fighting to avoid the play-in, the Phoenix Suns out west, they are now 27 and 19 after they lost to the Miami Heat 111 to 102. No Devin Booker in this one. No Jalen Green in this one. Green out with a hamstring. Booker has an ankle injury. He's going to miss at least a week with that injury. We have a lot to say about this game, but first, here's Ben Garcia with Locked on Suns.
Fall 111 to 102 to the Miami Heat. Let's talk about it. Benjamin Garcia, Locked on Phoenix Suns. When you heard the good injury news on Jalen Green and Devin Booker, you kind of felt good going into this game. Like, if you could win this one and then beat the Nets on Tuesday, maybe you're at least getting Jalen back in a couple of days with Devin Booker not too far behind. And it's a fun theory and thought because the Suns have had so many players have career years. Grayson Allen, Dylan Brooks, Jamari Bouye, Jordan Goodwin. You just kind of thought they could win the games against the Heat and the Nets and do it pretty convincingly. Well, that didn't happen tonight because without your 2 best shot creators offensively, the offense was stagnant. They got stuck in the half-court offense where the Heat absolutely stuffed them in the locker and ate their lunch at times. And this is just kind of what it's going to be. The Suns' defense tonight I actually thought was pretty good outside of the first quarter, but they've got to get more offensive production from guys like Dylan Brooks and Grayson Allen, where it's not going to be offensive explosions like Devin Booker or Jalen Green would have, but it's got to be more to the point where you can still win these games. And tonight it just never felt like that was the case. The Suns couldn't sustain some runs, and so for that reason, they lost this Miami Heat team, and it got kind of ugly at the end.
I think the story of the season for the Suns, and we'll talk about Miami in a minute, because this is a nice win for them, and they just wrapped up a 5-game West Coast road trip with a 3-2 record, and I think that's something they should be happy about. But whether or not the Suns are able to avoid the play-in, to me, is going to directly correlate with how much time Devin Booker misses because of this ankle injury. This is the 5th game that he's missed so far this season. Phoenix is 1-4 in those games, and so he's going to be reevaluated in a week. They play Brooklyn on Tuesday, which is a game they're more than capable, and we'll talk about Brooklyn losing by 1,000,000 points to the Clippers in a second here. That's a game they're capable of winning without him. Then they have a back-to-back in Phoenix against Detroit and the Cavaliers. So like that's going to be a tough go without Booker. So I look at these games, and Miami's a good team. They're not a great team, but the opportunities to win games without Booker, they've got to find a way how to do it. And I'm not so sure that they're going to.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It is no fault of their own with the Suns. You just can't be down that many shot creators at the top of the field, and especially given the fact that you need that for Osa Iguodala and Mark Williams, for everybody to do what they need to do. Dylan Brooks, commendable job. Colin Gillespie, commendable job. But they're obviously not good enough to do the things that you need to do, and you saw that today versus the Miami Heat. And one thing that fans know, when you don't have those players, getting points and creating easy possessions becomes just a nightmare. It's like a sludge through the mud. And that's exactly what this game felt like for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, it felt like they couldn't generate great shots. And I think that Phoenix has been a very good defensive team all year. But one of the concerns I think is fair to have is, are they going to allow their offense, when things aren't going well, to affect their defense? Because you mentioned not having those two shot creators, and Jalen Green could theoretically be back on Tuesday. It's not that he's played a lot this year. I think he's only played 5 games for Phoenix because of the hamstring injuries that have been ongoing. But can they keep up a high level of defense when the ball's not going through the basket as frequently as it was before? Because their offense is going to take a step back, and that's an issue. And as for Miami, they improved to 25-22. They have an opportunity to move out of the play-in and into the top 6 tomorrow. They are currently a half game ahead of the Orlando Magic. And they, I think, have done a pretty good job this year, all things considered, with some of the injuries they've dealt with.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this part of the season has just been, can you get through the stretch of injuries with your team and at least try to keep home court advantage? That has literally been the story of the season.
Yeah, and it's not just Miami, but it's Phoenix, it's Cleveland, it's Denver. It's been everywhere. It feels like everybody has been affected by that. A team that I don't necessarily know was dealing with a lot of injuries, but had a pretty hurtful effort on Sunday was the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got crushed by the Golden State Warriors. We'll talk about that game. Plus, we will talk about the LA Clippers, who don't look now, have won 15 of 18. We'll dive in next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like being inside of an NBA arena for a big game. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been quite as simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs, with you, the fan. You can pull up the Gametime app, pick an upcoming NBA game for whatever city you're in, and you can have tickets locked and loaded within minutes. You can see the prices up front. They're not going to be those surprise fees at the very end. You're not going to be thinking that you're going to pay one price, and then at the very end it jumps because they have surprises and taxes and things like that. That's not how Gametime operates. The price up front is the price that you pay. Plus, you can see the view from your seat before buying. That makes the decision even easier. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen. Thank you to those of you that make this show your first listen every single day. And next we head out to Minnesota, where this was a makeup game between the Wolves and the Warriors that was rescheduled from Saturday after the tragedy that happened earlier this week in Minneapolis. The game was pushed back one day, and the Golden State Warriors beat the Wolves 111-85 in this one. Minnesota really struggled to take care of the basketball. They had 25 turnovers in this game. I think for the Warriors right now, as they try and kind of stabilize after the Jimmy Butler injury, every win they can get is a good one, and this one certainly qualifies as such.
Yeah, this was a very bad game for the Wolves. They had 63 points through 3 quarters today. It was an abysmal effort. The numbers for Anthony Edwards were good. He had 32 points and 11 rebounds in this game, had 2 assists, but the defense was just not there at all. And the engagement level wasn't. Again, I don't know what exactly it is. I mean, there's obviously a lot of stuff happening, with Minnesota, so I don't know if the players were distracted or not, but it definitely felt like the team wasn't all the way there today.
And to your point about Ant, he had 8 turnovers in this game.
Yeah.
Dante DiVincenzo had 5 turnovers. Jaden McDaniels had 4 turnovers. Like they had 25 turnovers as a team in this game. And just like you're not going to win games, and they only somehow conceded 25 points off of those turnovers, which feels like a huge win. But that's so many empty possessions offensively. And to me, the Wolves feel like one of the moodiest teams in the NBA. Like, let's go back 2 weeks where it felt like Minnesota was one of the best teams, and we could all kind of picture as this team that could maybe potentially come out of the West. And now 2 weeks later, they're in the play-in. Like, I don't know if there's a more hot and cold team in basketball than who the Wolves are.
Yeah, they're definitely on the list. I would have thought when they started getting healthy and got their rhythm back, they would have gone on a better win streak than they have, and they'd be putting together better stretches of basketball. But if you're looking at the NBA standings right now, they're currently the 7th seed tied with the Suns. And I would have thought they would have passed the Lakers by now, maybe even Houston Rockets with how the Houston Rockets have been sliding as of late. The Rockets are 5-5. The Wolves are 4-6 in their last 10. They just can't get right now.
Yeah, the Wolves have lost 5 straight games now. Those losses have been to the Warriors, the Chicago Bulls, the Utah Jazz, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets. So there are some losses in there, not necessarily the worst losses in the world, but when you are on a losing streak and also losing to bad teams, and I don't want to call the Warriors a bad team, but I don't think the Chicago Bulls are a good team, and the Utah Jazz, depending on if they try or not, maybe aren't the worst team in the world. Some nights they would prefer to be the worst team in the world, but ultimately not a good loss for Minnesota. They will look to bounce back as these two teams play again on Monday night. And our final game of the night, the LA Clippers get a massive win, 126-89 over the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Brooklyn Nets are terrible, and I'm not trying to pile on here. Like, this is not necessarily impressive because of how many points the Clippers won by. But remember, like a month and a half ago, when we were talking about the disaster that the Clippers had become? Well, since then, we talked about it. We're not talking preseason here. We're talking November when it was bad.
Welcome back, Clippers!
They won 15 of their last 18 games. They've moved to 21-24 on the season, which, again, not where we thought they would be, but they are, I think, the team in the NBA trending in the right direction.
I have already mentally prepared my mind, brother. They're going to win 44 plus games this year. Okay, they're currently sitting at 21-24. That's 45 games into the season. All right, so that means they have 37 games left. If I did the math, 37 games left. So if they go 44 wins with 37 games left, they need to go 23-13 to do that. I think they do it. I think they win more games than that. And my brain, Danny, is already prepared. We're going to get Clippers, Nuggets, Part 3 first-round series again. And I can't wait because this Clipper team is really good. Kawhi Leonard is hooping, and I'm glad that they're back where they belong because I had no idea how they started 6-21 or whatever it was to start the year off. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they were an absolute disaster. And to your point, like Kawhi is playing excellent basketball right now. I don't even think his box score numbers from this game, and he only played 25 minutes because the Clippers were leading the entire second half by 30 points or more, it felt like. He had 28 points, he had 5 rebounds, he had 2 assists, a block, and a steal, but just like he looks like peak Kawhi. And that hasn't always been the case. Like, I think part of the reason why they were struggling early on is Kawhi didn't look like this.
Yeah.
He has, I really think, taken it a notch up to where it's like, this guy, he's not going to win the MVP. He shouldn't win the MVP, but he looks like an MVP type of player right now for them.
Let me ask you this, because right now the Clippers are currently, so they're 4 games back at Golden State. Do we feel pretty comfortable they'll catch them given the Jimmy Butler injury?
I do. Yeah. I don't think Golden State's going to be able to sustain without Jimmy, just like they don't have enough shot creation, and maybe they make some big trade or something, but also Kuminga being out for who knows how long plays into that too.
So they're currently 5.5 games back of the Phoenix Suns and Wolves for the 6th seed. 37 games left. Can they catch them?
They can. They absolutely can. I don't think. I mean, I think it's a lot easier to catch someone at the bottom of the standings than it is at the top of the standings. Certainly, like we talked about how I don't think anyone in the East is catching Detroit, and there's a 5.5 game gap between them and Boston. But I think when a team is 27-19 as Phoenix and Minnesota is compared to when a team like Detroit is 33-11, like those 5.5 games are much easier to make up. Like I think they'll catch Phoenix. I don't think they'll catch Minnesota. I think Minnesota will snap out of it. And I also think that Minnesota, like of those teams, is the healthiest of the bunch. And I think that matters here. But would I bet on them getting up to at least 7? Probably. Yeah. Would you?
Man, I think they might. And they'll at least get to 8. And then at that point, they're going to be fighting for that 7 speed. So that play-in game versus that Clippers team is going to be just a dogfight. But I would like to see they can get to 6, but honestly, I almost kind of want to see them play OKC in the first round too. But I don't know, man. If I'm the Clippers, I want to climb as high as possible, but I would not be mad at the first round series. It's like fully healthy Clippers versus fully healthy OKC, for the money.
So I know it's January 26th as we're talking right now.
Yeah.
How many teams in the Western Conference do you look at and say, if the playoffs started right now, the Clippers are capable of beating that team in a 7-game series?
Well, I would say they're capable of beating all of them, but probability based on matchup, scheme, I would say everybody, but I think they would struggle with the Spurs, but they could beat the Spurs. I don't think they would beat Denver or OKC, everyone fully healthy in the series at this point. But I think they could do it. But I think those other players, those other teams, man, especially with Denver when they get healthy, they just might have a little bit too much offensive firepower at this point.
I think right now I would pick them to beat everybody other than OKC and Denver. I'm with you. Like I think if they face the Lakers right now in a best of 7 series, the Clippers would win that series. If they face the Suns, if they face the Wolves, like I think they would win that series. Now, whether or not we actually get to see that at some point, I don't know, but the Clippers are unquestionably a team on the rise. And then one other note as we get out of here, because this was a lighter slate for us. That's because 2 games were postponed due to weather in multiple parts of the country. The Dallas Mavericks were unable to fly out of Dallas to make it to Milwaukee. So that game was postponed, and the Denver Nuggets and Memphis Grizzlies did not play their game in Memphis because of a winter storm that is sweeping the nation right now. I certainly am affected here in Cleveland. We got about a foot of snow today, man.
A foot?
Yeah, we got a lot of snow.
Yeah, everybody knows I'm in Atlanta. We have an ice storm morning, and it's like very sleek outside, but I don't know if we're not gonna get enough water and cold accumulation for all the nerds out there. There's the temperature's not going to be low enough for long enough, and the level of humidity is always humid out here. So literally usually leads to just like ice when you get into the southern, part of the United States. And so what happens is if you get the air temperatures, the air starts flowing over the top. Anyway, Locked On, we didn't get any snow out here, but please be safe wherever you are.
Yes.
And make sure you take care of yourself.
Yes, be safe. Listen to Bill Nye over there. Make sure that you are safe if you have to travel, and stay home if you don't have to travel. And thank you for hanging out with us.
Wait, let's do our ending song. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill.
What a legend. Thank you for hanging out with us here on Locked On NBA Game Night. We appreciate it. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button on YouTube, and make sure you are subscribed wherever you are listening to this show. We will be back tomorrow talking about everything going on in the NBA.